So just how bad is Kash Patel's leadership at the FBI? It is so bad that with his latest chaotic firings, the FBI Agents Association, which represents 14,000 agents, including more than 90% of all active FBI agents, has issued a blistering public rebuke, calling Kash Patel's actions, quote, erratic and arbitrary retribution. As a part of the ongoing purge at the FBI, several agents who worked on investigations related to Donald Trump's attempt to overturn the 2020 election results.
All right, so let's talk about what just went down with Kash Patel, because this story is absolutely wild. And yeah, I know what you're thinking. Another scandal, another controversy, another day in Washington. But hold on, this one's different. This one has everything. Government jets, country music, a girlfriend named Alexis, and a career FBI guy getting fired because flight data leaked. Like, come on, you can't make this stuff up. So here's what happened. Kash Patel, the FBI director, the guy Trump put in charge of one of the most powerful agencies in the country, took a $60 million FBI jet to Pennsylvania, not for some top secret investigation, not for a national security briefing, not even for a congressional hearing. Nope, he flew to Penn State to watch his girlfriend sing the national anthem at a wrestling event. Yeah, a wrestling event. And look, I'm not here to judge anyone's personal life, but when you're using taxpayer-funded government aircraft to do it, that's when people start asking questions. And the questions came fast. Flight logs went public. People started connecting the dots. October 25th, FBI jet leaves Mar-a-Lago, lands in Pennsylvania. Same day, Alexis Wilkins, country singer and Patel's girlfriend, performs at this wrestling thing. Coincidence? The FBI said, yeah, totally. He reimbursed the costs. Everything's fine. Move along. But Washington didn't move along. Congress didn't move along. And the American people, they definitely didn't move along. But before we go any further, real quick, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Pump Politics, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, join our free newsletter. We'll send the news straight to your inbox every day. Just click the link in the description to join. And if you just want to support what we're doing, join us, be part of the community that actually cares about the truth. All right, let's get back to the video.
And we urge Director Patel to do the same. When leadership abandons due process, it doesn't just erode trust, it makes the American public less safe.
This statement is actually quite extraordinary, and it's for reasons that may not at first be obvious to the general public. FBI agents, for a variety of reasons and a variety of statutes, do not have access to a lot of the mechanisms other federal employees have to protect their rights and their livelihood. FBI agents cannot unionize. Most of them do not have access to the Merit Systems Protection Board. There are different whistleblower procedures for FBI employees than there are for general government employees.
Because here's the thing, this isn't just about one flight. This isn't just about one trip to see his girlfriend perform. This is about pattern. This is about perception. This is about what it looks like when the guy running the FBI acts like the rules don't apply to him. And maybe they don't. Maybe he followed every protocol. Maybe he paid back every dollar. But optics matter. And these optics, they're terrible. So Patel did what any defensive person would do. He went on the attack, called the criticism disgustingly baseless, defended Alexis on social media, called her a true patriot, which fine, defend your girlfriend, that's your right. But then things got weird, because shortly after all this blew up, Stephen Palmer got fired. Well, technically he was told to resign or be fired. Same difference. And who's Stephen Palmer? Oh, just a 27-year veteran of the FBI. Just the guy who ran the aviation division. Just the third aviation head to get dismissed since Patel took over. And suddenly, this isn't just a story about a flight. This is a story about retaliation. This is a story about power. This is a story about what happens when you cross the wrong person in Washington. Because the rumor, the whisper, the thing everyone's saying but nobody can quite prove yet is that Palmer's the one who leaked the flight data. Or at least, he's the one Patel thinks leaked it. And whether that's true or not, doesn't really matter. What matters is Palmer's out, and Patel's still flying around in that $60 million jet. Now look, I get it. People in power use government resources. That's how it works. Cabinet members fly on military aircraft all the time. The president has Air Force One. Vice president has Air Force Two. Security details use motorcades and helicopters, and all kinds of expensive stuff. That's the system. But there's supposed to be limits, right? There's supposed to be oversight. There's supposed to be some kind of accountability when taxpayer money gets used for personal stuff. And that's where this gets interesting. Because the FBI, came out and said Patel followed protocol. He reimbursed the government. Everything was by the book. Cool. Great. So why'd he fire the aviation guy? Why the defamation threats? Why the angry social media posts? If everything's fine, if everything's above board, if you really did nothing wrong, why does this feel like a cover-up? That's what we're digging into today. Because this story has layers. It's got government waste. It's got relationship drama. It's got Trump-era appointments causing chaos. It's got fired officials and leaked documents and Senate hearings. And underneath all of it, questions about whether the people running our institutions are actually accountable to anyone. So buckle up. This is going to get messy. And here's the kicker. This isn't happening in isolation. This is happening while Trump's second term is already filled with controversy, government shutdowns, cabinet fights, constitutional battles. And now the FBI director can't even take a trip without creating a national scandal. It's like the chaos never stops. It just keeps building. And every single time you think, okay, maybe things will calm down now, something else explodes. This time, it's a $60 million jet and a country singer. Next time, who knows? But you can bet it'll be just as wild. Okay, so let's back up and really understand what happened here. Because the initial story sounds simple, right? FBI director uses fancy jet for personal trip. But once you start pulling the thread, the whole thing unravels into something way more complicated. And honestly, the more you dig, the worse it looks. First, let's talk about Kash Patel himself. This guy isn't some random bureaucrat who worked his way up through the ranks. He's a Trump loyalist, total insider. He worked on the House Intelligence Committee during the whole Russia investigation thing. He was a defender of Trump throughout all those battles. He wrote memos. He did interviews. He was right there in the trenches fighting for Trump when everyone else was investigating him. When Trump won his second term and started reshaping government agencies, Patel got the FBI director job. And that appointment, it was controversial from day one. Critics said he wasn't qualified. They said he was too partisan. They said putting someone that loyal to Trump in charge of the FBI was dangerous for institutional independence. Supporters said he was exactly what the FBI needed. Someone who clean house. Someone who root out the deep state. Someone who wouldn't play the Washington game. So right from the start, everything Patel does gets viewed through this lens of partisanship and loyalty, and whether he's actually doing his job or just doing Trump's bidding. Which brings us to October 25th. Patel's at Mar-a-Lago. Trump's there too, probably. It's where a lot of administration business happens these days. And Patel needs to get to Pennsylvania. Now FBI directors have access to government aircraft for security reasons. That's normal. The job comes with threats. You can't just have the FBI director flying Southwest with regular passengers. Too risky. So there's a whole fleet of FBI jets specifically for official travel. And one of those jets, worth about $60 million. State of the art. Secure communications. The whole deal. Patel boards that jet, flies to Penn State, and that evening, Alexis Wilkins performs the national anthem at a wrestling event. She's a country singer, not super famous, but she's got a following. She's performed at various events, and apparently she's been dating Patel. Now here's where it gets tricky. Was this trip official business? The FBI says yes. They claim Patel had work-related reasons for being in Pennsylvania. They won't say what those reasons were, obviously, because of ongoing investigations or whatever, but they insist it wasn't just a personal trip. Except, come on, the timing's too perfect. Same day, same location, his girlfriend's performing, and yeah, maybe he had meetings. Maybe he visited a field office. Maybe he did FBI stuff while he was there. But when the primary reason everyone thinks you went somewhere is to see your girlfriend sing, and you're using a $60 million government jet to do it, that's a problem. That's a massive problem. And look, the FBI addressed this. They said Patel reimbursed the government for the personal portion of the trip, which is what you're supposed to do. If you mix official business with personal stuff, you calculate the personal percentage and you pay that back. Happens all the time with government officials. But here's the thing. How do you calculate that? How do you figure out what percentage of a $60 million jet flight was personal versus official? Who decides that? Who audits it? Because if Patel says, oh yeah, 90% of this trip was official FBI business, I'll reimburse 10%. Who's checking that math? This is where the accountability question comes in. And this is where Stephen Palmer enters the story. Palmer's been with the FBI for 27 years, almost 3 decades, worked his way up, eventually became the head of the aviation division. That's the unit that manages all the FBI's aircraft, flight schedules, security protocols, maintenance, everything. It's a big job, lots of responsibility, and part of that responsibility is keeping records of who uses what aircraft and when. So those flight logs exist. They have to, for security, for budgeting, for oversight. And somehow those logs got out. Flight data showing Patel's trip from Mar-a-Lago to Pennsylvania on October 25th, the same day as Alexis's performance. The media got hold of it. The story broke, and suddenly everyone's asking questions. Suddenly this private trip becomes public knowledge. Suddenly the FBI director's personal life is front page news. Now we don't know for sure who leaked those logs. Could have been Palmer. Could have been someone else in the aviation division. Could have been someone completely different who had access to the data. Could have been a whistleblower who thought the public deserved to know. Could have been someone with a grudge. We just don't know. But Patel apparently decided it was Palmer, or at least Palmer was responsible because it happened on his watch. And so Palmer was told to resign. And when someone with 27 years of service gets told to resign or be fired, that's not a small thing. That's career ending. That's reputation destroying. That's your whole life's work getting tossed aside because you became inconvenient. And get this, Palmer's the third head of aviation to get pushed out since Patel became FBI director. Third in less than a year. What are the odds that 3 different people all happen to be incompetent or problematic in the same role in such a short time? Or is it more likely that Patel's cleaning house, getting rid of anyone he doesn't trust, installing people who'll be loyal to him specifically, people who won't ask questions, people who won't leak, people who'll cover for him when he needs it? This is the pattern people are worried about, because it's not just aviation. Patel's made a bunch of personnel changes across the FBI. Some of them make sense. New leadership brings new priorities. That's normal. That's expected. But when you start firing people who might have been involved in exposing something embarrassing about you, that starts to look like retaliation. That starts to look like you're more concerned with protecting yourself than running the agency properly. And then Patel made it worse by going public. He posted on social media, defending Alexis, called her a true patriot, slammed the critics as disgustingly baseless, said the attacks were unfair and politically motivated. And yeah, I get it. Nobody likes being attacked. Nobody likes their personal life becoming a public spectacle. Nobody likes having their relationship dragged through the media. But when you're a public official using public resources, your personal life becomes public interest. That's the job. You signed up for scrutiny. You signed up for accountability. You don't get to cry foul when people notice you're using a $60 million jet to visit your girlfriend. The Senate started asking questions. Hearings got scheduled. Lawmakers wanted answers about the cost, the reimbursement, the justification for the trip. Democrats were furious. Republicans were defensive, but uncomfortable. And the FBI stonewalled, said it was all proper, said Patel followed procedures, said the personal portion was reimbursed. But they wouldn't release details. They wouldn't explain the calculation. They wouldn't clarify what official business justified the trip. Just trust us. Everything's fine. But nobody trusts them anymore. That's the problem. Trust in institutions is already at historic lows. People already think government officials are corrupt. They already think the rules don't apply to people in power. And then something like this happens, and it confirms every cynical belief people have about Washington. Of course, the FBI director uses fancy jets for personal trips. Of course, he fires anyone who exposes him. Of course, there's no real accountability. Of course, the system protects its own. And that's where we are now. Palmer's out. Patel's defending himself. Congress is investigating. The media is digging. And the American people are watching this whole circus, wondering, are these the people we trust to run federal law enforcement? Because if the FBI director can't even handle a simple flight controversy without firing people and threatening lawsuits and going on defensive social media rants, what does that say about how he handles actual crises? This matters because institutions matter. The FBI is supposed to be above politics. It's supposed to be independent. It's supposed to investigate crimes and enforce laws without fear or favor. And when the guy running it looks like he's more concerned with protecting his image than maintaining institutional integrity, that's a problem. That's a big problem. And it's not just about Kash Patel. It's about what happens when political appointees treat government agencies like personal fiefdoms, when loyalty matters more than competence, when covering up embarrassments matters more than transparency. All right, let's break this down into what actually matters. Because there's a lot of noise around this story, a lot of partisan spin, a lot of people trying to make this about something bigger or smaller than it really is. But underneath it all, there are 3 big issues we need to understand. 3 things that go way beyond Kash Patel and his girlfriend in one jet flight. First, government accountability. This is the basic question of whether people in power have to follow the same rules as everyone else. And yeah, I know, naive question. They obviously don't, but theoretically they're supposed to. When a government official uses taxpayer-funded resources for personal benefit, there's supposed to be oversight. There's supposed to be consequences. There's supposed to be some mechanism that ensures they're not abusing their position. And if those mechanisms aren't working, if officials can just wave away criticism and fire anyone who questions them, then what's the point of having rules at all? The $60 million jet thing isn't actually about $60 million. That's what the jet's worth. But obviously, the flight itself didn't cost that much. Maybe a few thousand in fuel and crew costs. Maybe 10 grand total. And Patel supposedly reimbursed the personal portion. So financially, this might not be a huge deal, but the principle matters. Because if FBI directors can use government jets whenever they want, for whatever reason, and the only check on that power is their own self-reporting of what counts as official business, that's not accountability, that's honor system. And the honor system doesn't work when people aren't honorable. It doesn't work when people have every incentive to lie. It doesn't work when the person investigating themselves is the same person who benefits from finding no wrongdoing. Here's what should happen. Independent audit of the trip. Clear breakdown of official versus personal activities. Public disclosure of how much was reimbursed and how that number was calculated. Congressional oversight hearing with actual answers instead of deflections. Maybe even an inspector general investigation. Anything that shows this isn't just powerful people policing themselves. But that's not happening. Instead, we're getting defensive statements and fired officials and defamation threats, which tells you everything you need to know about whether this was really above board. Because innocent people don't act like this. People with nothing to hide don't fire whistleblowers. They don't threaten lawsuits. They don't go on angry social media rants. They release the documents. They show the receipts. They prove they did nothing wrong. The fact that Patel's doing the opposite, that's your answer right there. Second issue, institutional independence. The FBI is supposed to be insulated from political pressure. That's the whole idea behind it. That's why the director serves a 10-year term. That's why there are procedures and protocols and chains of command. The whole point is that law enforcement shouldn't be a tool of whoever's in power. It should be neutral. It should be fair. It should investigate crimes based on evidence, not based on what helps or hurts the administration. But Patel's appointment already raised questions about that independence. He's a Trump loyalist. Everyone knows it. That's not some secret. That's why he got the job. Trump wanted someone he could trust running the FBI. Someone who wouldn't investigate him or his allies. Someone who'd go after his enemies. And now he's purging people from the aviation division after his travel gets scrutinized. That's exactly what institutional independence is supposed to prevent. Because if FBI employees know they'll get fired for exposing wrongdoing by their own director, what do you think happens? They stay quiet. They look the other way. They protect the boss instead of protecting the institution. They become complicit. This is how agencies become corrupted, not through some grand conspiracy, but through small compromises, through career employees realizing that honesty gets punished and loyalty gets rewarded, through whistleblowers getting retaliated against, while the people they expose face no consequences. Palmer's firing, whether he actually leaked or not, sends a message to everyone else at the FBI. Cross Patel at your own risk. Expose him and lose your career. It doesn't matter if you're right. It doesn't matter if the public has a right to know. It doesn't matter if you're trying to protect the integrity of the institution. What matters is loyalty. What matters is keeping secrets. What matters is making the boss look good. And that's terrifying because the FBI has enormous power. They investigate crimes. They gather intelligence. They can destroy lives. And if that power becomes a tool of political loyalty instead of neutral law enforcement, that's how democracies die. That's how you end up with secret police. That's how you end up with government agencies that serve one person or one party instead of serving justice. And third, the Trump factor. Because let's be real, this doesn't happen in a vacuum. Patel got this job because of Trump. The whole reshaping of federal agencies that's been happening, that's Trump's project. And the goal isn't subtle. It's to put loyalists in key positions. It's to remake government institutions in ways that serve political interests. It's to reward friends and punish enemies. Now you can think that's good or bad depending on your politics. Maybe you think the FBI needed to be cleaned out. Maybe you think career bureaucrats had too much power and Trump's fixing it. Maybe you think the deep state was real and needed to be dismantled. Or maybe you think this is exactly what people warned about, the erosion of institutional norms and checks and balances. Either way, the Patel jet scandal is part of that bigger story because this is about more than one flight. It's about whether the people Trump appointed to run these agencies are actually capable of doing the job, not the political job, the actual job, running investigations, managing thousands of employees, maintaining public trust, handling crises, And if they can't even navigate a relatively simple controversy about travel expenses without creating more problems, what happens when something actually serious goes down? Think about what comes next. There's going to be more scrutiny now. More leaks, probably. More friction between Patel and career FBI employees who don't trust him. More questions from Congress. More media coverage. And through all of it, the FBI still has to do its actual work. Counterterrorism, cybercrime, organized crime, public corruption, all the stuff that actually matters. All the stuff that keeps Americans safe. But how do you do that effectively? When your director's credibility is shot. When field agents are watching their boss fight scandals instead of fighting crime. When foreign intelligence services are probably laughing at the chaos. When the public doesn't trust anything the FBI says because they think it's all political. Institutions run on trust, and trust is hard to build but easy to destroy. One dumb decision about a jet flight, one vindictive firing, one defensive rant on social media, and suddenly people question everything. Here's what bothers me most about this. It was so avoidable. If Patel had just flown commercial, or chartered a private flight and paid for it himself, or brought Alexis to wherever he was going officially, or literally done anything other than take a government jet to watch his girlfriend perform, none of this happens. Palmer keeps his job. The FBI doesn't look incompetent. Patel doesn't look corrupt or petty or defensive. It would have been so easy, such a simple choice to avoid all this drama, but he didn't do that. And now here we are, with another scandal, another distraction, another reason for people to distrust government institutions. And the sad part, this probably won't have consequences. Patel probably keeps his job. The investigation probably goes nowhere. Congress probably moves on to the next thing. Palmer probably doesn't get his job back. And the lesson everyone learns is that you can get away with pretty much anything as long as you're loyal to the right people. So yeah, that's the Kash Patel FBI jet scandal. $60 million aircraft. Country music girlfriend. Fired whistleblower. Government accountability that doesn't actually account for anything. And Trump-era appointees. Treating federal agencies like personal playgrounds. Just another day in Washington, right? Just another story that'll be forgotten in a week. Except it won't be forgotten by the FBI employees watching their institution crumble. It won't be forgotten by the American people who keep getting told to trust these agencies while watching stuff like this happen. It won't be forgotten by everyone who still believes government should serve the public instead of serving whoever's in charge. And it definitely won't be forgotten by Stephen Palmer, who gave 27 years to the FBI and got fired because his boss couldn't handle a little accountability. 27 years of service, gone. Because he might have leaked flight data that showed his boss doing something questionable, or because he was in charge when someone else leaked it, or because he was just convenient to blame. Doesn't really matter which. What matters is he's out, and Patel's still flying around in government jets. But hey, at least Alexis Wilkins got to sing the national anthem. So there's that. And Patel got to see his girlfriend perform. And Trump's got a loyal FBI director who won't cause problems. Everybody wins, except for Palmer and the American people and anyone who cares about institutional integrity. But who's counting? More chaos coming soon. Because there's always more chaos. There's always another scandal. There's always another example of people in power doing whatever they want. Stay tuned.